You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight? What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Dr. Funk Live podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Apple Music, live on Facebook Live and YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else. This is a very, very special show, near and dear to my heart. A lot of time was put into this. It's the 10-year anniversary of the PRINCE Spreecast. You know, a little thing that we started before this technology wasn't out here. But it's just a lot of memories have been coming up, very, very good memories, and just these other things. And I'm just going to get right to it because the guest that I have on, without him, it wouldn't have started. And it's super, super important. He is just when it comes to sports shows, to comic books, to other stuff, he's got so many things going on, and we're going to delve into that. But without further ado, here is my former co-host of the original Spreecast on the 10-year anniversary, Mr. Seth Everett.
Please, please. How are you, buddy? You're looking well.
Thank you. Hopefully I gave you as good of an introduction as you would do for me when we were doing it and have me on screen with my weird outfits or whatever I'd have.
I used to write them down. I used to take notes.
Dude, 10 years.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about how, 10 years ago, where we were in our lives. It was totally different. And I know I just remember doing it so fondly. And the last time I really thought about Spreecast was when Prince passed. You and I talked then, and we reminisced about the show. But ever since then, it really has been, back of mind. And, the people that I reached out to when you asked me to come on the show from Spreecast, they were all so thrilled. They were just like, I can't believe the word is on Twitter again. Like, it just was wild. And the folks who, if any of them are watching, just the people who were part of it, who helped put that show together. And can we finally say what we weren't allowed to say back then? Our producer was Prince.
Yeah. That's just insane. Because, we did, I reached out to you September or October of 2012. We did like a test show. And we
I asked you to be a guest on a show.
Right.
See, what happened was I was doing sports content for Spreecast, and they asked me to do something that fit my personality. And so I did a show about Superman, and they were like, enough with that. Who's your favorite rock band? And I was a massive Prince fan, and I did a Spreecast without you about Prince. And the only thing at that time in my life, I had about 15 minutes of a story of my being a fan. And they were like, oh, this is great. You need to do another one. And I said, how could I do that? I need somebody else. And I was searching Twitter, and Twitter was in its infancy. I mean, this is 2012. And I found you, and I said to you, could you be a guest on a talk show? And it's this video cast. And I had to explain to you what it was, and you were a guest, and that was it. We had a great show. It was fine, and it went over and done. And I thought we would never speak again. And then New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, you got a call from what you've told me, you got a call. And then all of a sudden on New Year's Day, I remember where I was. I was in the newsroom of a CBS radio, and you called and said, could we do another one? And I said, sure, why not? And we did that other one. And then you called me in the grocery store. I know, you have details that I didn't have. You were having conversations that I wasn't part of. And you called me. I was in the grocery store by the melons. I remember I was looking at orange melon, and all of a sudden you said, can we do it weekly? We'll get show notes. We'll get guests. He'll send music. And I was like, who is this?
Yeah, I'm going to be like, it was Prince, and you're like, wait, what? You didn't mention that detail.
Right. You didn't at that time. You were just like, we'll get all these things. And I was like, how dialed in is this guy? I couldn't believe it. So Prince spoke to you. He approached you about doing something, and you knew about the Spreecast because you had just done it.
It was like probably December 23rd. They sent me a photo of Prince on guitar, and there was a microphone, and they're like, can you remove the microphone and write something about how 2013 is going to be this big year, something big is coming, and all these things. Sent it to my friend. We took out the microphone. It's so funny because this photo is now everywhere on the line, and people are like, oh yeah, this is my photo or whatever. And I'll be like, dude, there was a microphone in it. Like, I'll post that stuff. And then what I wrote for 2013, it was like from me and Prince, because that's how they wanted me to write it. Like, Prince wants to thank the fans so much. He supports it. Just know that big things are on the horizon. And then they were overseas at that time. And I'm getting the stuff, but whenever you write something and you don't hear back, or just like when I said I'm going to be on some shows, if you don't hear back, that means everything is cool. Nothing needs to be changed. So I had that post, and around December 29th, a message like, hey, were you thinking of doing that Spreecast? I know that you were talking about it before, of maybe doing it again. Could you do it like, and I went, yeah. And like, when do you want me to do it? I figured like, what's he wanting? Like, can you do it like sometime this coming week? And I'm like, let me check with the guy. Let me do Wednesday. And that was just when we were like, you want to do one more show? And you're like, okay. It was before the grocery store conversation.
Yep.
But literally after we did, they sent notes for that first show.
Yep.
So people thought, and just like all the other times, the way that I was phrasing the questions or bringing stuff up, whether it was a message to Paul Peterson or others, it was coming from him, but I have it be like it was coming from me. And then he liked the show, and he's like, da-da-da, can you do it every week? I'll pay you. You know, albeit it took a little bit of time, but then there was money showing up on my PayPal account. But, you know, I let you know of it, and you're like, yeah, dude, like, I want to do it, and all these things. And I was like, okay, great.
Well, the folks at Spreecast, they loved it. They thought it was great, and they didn't know that Prince was involved. They just thought you were just some like mega insider, and they were like, have him on again. And I was just like, okay. And then when you proposed weekly to me, I remember the email that I sent to those guys saying he wants to do it every week. And my contract was with Spreecast. Like, you worked with Prince, I worked with Spreecast. And so they couldn't have been more supportive. They were promoting it. I don't know if you remember this, but in the very early time of our show, Britney Spears did a Spreecast. Do you remember this? Britney Spears did a Spreecast, and it crashed the server. Wow. And the only show that was closer to crashing, like we just finished in second place, was I think it was the Bobby Z show. Like, it was early on. It was in January or February. Like, it was one of the early shows. And from then, it just spiraled. We kept banging out shows every single Wednesday for almost a year. Yeah,
we're getting like 100,000 views the first week, and then other stuff. And then we were, you know, people didn't know, but we were having, you and I, we would have, like, before big shows, the Spreecast techs would be on with us, you know, and they're paying attention just in case things went a little bit too crazy.
Yep.
You know, so we're going to get back to this, but what have you been up to? Because I know that you've been up to a lot. You know, your Devils are doing great. We don't have to talk about the Mets job if you don't want to, but you were doing all these things.
I have no problem telling that story. Towards the end of 2013, the New York Mets changed their radio station, and I was asked to apply. And I had issues with the New York Mets ownership, and I was like, "There's no way they'll hire me," and they did. And in 2014, I traveled with the Mets, and I also got Lyme disease, and so I was dealing with both those things. I was on the road constantly, and the road trips, you know, just traveling with a baseball team, the road trips were easy because the road trips, like, you'd go to, you know, Cincinnati, you're staying in a Four Seasons, you're flying on a private plane. But with the homestands, I live in New Jersey and the Mets play in Queens. So I was like driving all over the world, and I was tired all the time. And it was a nasty, nasty experience. At the end of 2014, I divorced the Mets. And then I wanted to start my own podcast. And I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if I ever introduced you, but there was my old MLB broadcast partner, a guy by the name of Daryl Hamilton. And Daryl played 13 years in the majors. He played for the Milwaukee Brewers and the San Francisco Giants and the Texas Rangers and the New York Mets. And he retired in 2001. And in 2003, we got partnered together at MLB Radio. And I had reached out to Daryl because in 2014, it was weird. I was traveling with the Mets and he was traveling with the Brewers doing their broadcast. And we were inseparable. There was every day, it was texts and phone calls and who'd you see and what city are you in? And in 2015, he got a job with MLB Network. And the irony was I was going to start a podcast with him. And I was learning the technical aspects. And Jay, you know the technical side of setting up a podcast. It's arduous. And so I had started the podcast, but I was not sure. I was waiting for him to get clearance to do it. And unfortunately, really unfortunately, in June of 2015, he was killed in a murder-suicide.
Wow.
And, it's funny. People always talked about 2016 and what took place in April. And, as tragic a passing as that was, nothing could prepare me for June of 2015. That year was a nightmare. And Daryl's passing led to the creation of my podcast. I kind of gave up the project. And the people who I had been working with said, just because he's gone doesn't mean you shouldn't do a podcast. Right. You have a lot of friends, do a show. And so my mother, I remember, was playing the game. You remember the game Words with Friends?
Yes.
Yeah. So I created Sports with Friends. And the first guest we had was Eli Manning. And, we wound up having a bunch of people. And the slogan was every guest is a friend. And then PR people, as you would know, PR people started emailing me left and right and calling and texting and saying, hey, put my client on and let me put this guy on your podcast or this lady on your podcast. And one of the early episodes after I rebranded the show Sports with Friends, I said to the guest, welcome to Sports with Friends. Nice to meet you. And people on Twitter could be ruthless. And they were like, how the hell do you call this show Sports with Friends? You don't even know that guy. And so I changed the slogan to every guest is a friend or a friend of a friend. We play Jewish geography.
Right.
And since then, we're coming up on episode 400 of that podcast soon. And then, you mentioned the superheroes. One thing I felt very strongly about was that nobody in the superhero genre did a serious podcast, did an adult podcast. Podcasts were either super nerdy or super young, for kids. Right. And so I wanted to take everything I had learned about broadcasting and do a show about superheroes. So I called it the Hall of Justice. And the slogan is, if you're old enough to know what the Hall of Justice is, you're our demographic. And the one other viral moment from that was in 2016. In early 2016, Zack Snyder came on. And he, in the process, ripped Superman fans. And somebody at Variety, and I think it was somebody who had watched our Spreecast, wrote an article. Snyder rips Superman fans on podcast, and put the link to the podcast. We had over 500,000 listens to that podcast. And since then, the audience has been real consistent. I think we just did, ironically, this week, we just did episode 319. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So yeah, so I have those two podcasts. Those are kind of my pride and joy, and I put them together. Sports with Friends comes out on Wednesdays, and Hall of Justice comes out on Thursdays, and I sleep on Fridays.
Yeah, you got to catch up to it or whatnot. I don't know what sleep is. Last night I complained the earthquake that we had.
Yeah, I heard about that.
but I burned the candle from both ends, you know. And then with Variety, we'd have them like, look, when I did the website, the website is still active, but in the sense that it's there, but I don't post on it anymore because social media, unless you're one of the big names, doesn't do anything. But yes, like you brought up PR people, like started the website mid 2000s, and then immediately like it took off. Got the Prince Oscar party information from Ruth Arte, and then literally the Britney drama with her ex-husband Kevin Federline because he didn't live too far from me. That was happening, so I reported on that. Then a Courtney Love thing where I ran into her at a police station paying a fix-it ticket, and one of the police officers thought it was Kelly Clarkson. No disrespect to Kelly, but Courtney thought that was disrespectful, and then she was posting on my site in the comments, then sharing it to her social media contacts at that time. So within a week, my site was just blowing up, and I'm like, I wanted to do something like this in early 2002, and people are like, why do they need you? They have Entertainment Tonight, they have these other things. I'm like, for artists that I like, because I covered everything, not just Prince, because I love music and love different things. You used to tease me because I would quote Taylor Swift. You'd be like, that's my daughter's music. And I hear you're trying to get her off of that, you said?
No, I just, the only thing I could say is all her songs sound exactly the same.
Oof.
She'll put them on, put Taylor Swift on in the car, and I'll be like, this sounds like literally every other song that I've ever heard. And my argument is, for the artists that you and I are the massive fans of, whatever style of music you dig, he did that. None of his albums sound exactly the same. And that's what I was trying to show, is that have some artistry, and what I laughed at, and I think I told you this story, I laughed when she re-recorded all her songs. What a waste of her time.
Well, you had to do it. Prince was wanting to do that.
He wanted to, but then he realized it wouldn't pay off.
Well, also at that time, you're talking about 20 years down the road, his voice changed. Taylor's, although she hasn't done her first album when she was 16 yet, her voice is still somewhat the same, and you're talking about 6 albums compared to 20. And also him being a Jehovah's Witness at the time, couldn't use curse words, couldn't do stuff. So it's a little bit harder. But, I try to cover all aspects of music. And then here it is when I was interviewing people for my website, and then their management people like, oh, I want to see the interview beforehand. I want to see this. I'm like, dude, like not even Prince does that stuff. So, like I would just throw that in there. Like if he trusts me, you guys have to trust me in doing it. And of course, it was just this one artist, and a PR team was like contacting me like, hey, what up? What was happening with it? I'm like, the manager's making all these weird requests, like on that Prince do it. And like, I really enjoyed her live performance when I checked out this artist, really enjoyed her first album, but she never became anything. And I think it's because when you're putting these strangleholds and making the stuff be harder when people are giving you free promotion, it's problematic. So you have to deal with egos, and then you have like a lot of attention that came in. Because again, I also feel it's like a lot of Prince fans listen to Prince only. And I feel you got to have this spectrum of stuff open, whether it's Taylor, whether it's Bruno, Silk Sonic, and other music that I enjoy, not just that, but I try to be on top of trends and then have deep respect, as like for Frank Sinatra and other stuff. And that's how discussions would happen with Prince about writing a book, talking about Sinatra on this show, and then doing stuff. And I have a deep regret on that I've expressed to the fans too much, and we can get into that later maybe. But it's like, look, you saw what Prince about 20 times in concert. I know it was over 10.
Oh, in my 30 years, I saw him 22 times. I wrote him down. I remember that year in 2013, I wrote the amount of times I had seen him. And at that point, I think it was 18, and I saw him a bunch of times that year. But yeah, and that included like the Hard Rock, the week of the Super Bowl. That included Denver when he did the Jam of the Year tour. That included the 1999 New Year's, New Year's '98. The one when he performed at Bryant Park in New York City for Good Morning America. I was at that.
Right.
I saw him 22 times over 30 some odd years. The first time I saw him was at the Palladium in New York City when he had changed his name and refused to do any Prince songs.
Right.
And those turned out to be my favorite era. I mean that's Race and Endorphin Machine and all that stuff. I love that. That's my favorite time. I tell you all the time, you can republish all your 80s albums. I was 11 years old.
Right.
The 90s was when I was in college.
It's just, look, at that time, for us as fans, it's different, but the general public, the name change, the Slave on the Face, the other stuff, the battle with Warner Brothers, so he didn't have the machine behind him anymore. Said it countless times that they could be releasing 90s stuff and it may catch on because we can control the narrative now and other things. And it is, look, I went from when I first saw Prince in the early 90s, went from 0 shows to 3 within 3 days. And the reason being, this is just, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but it's being in your teens, you don't have money, you don't have other things coming on. So he does 3 shows out here for the Act One tour. They sell out within 5 minutes. I call a radio station, the 15th caller for Power 106. I get tickets to the show. I run to my work like, oh my God. And then people are like, wow, that's amazing. So I come back home. I'm like, I wonder if other radio stations are giving away tickets. So then I listen to 92.3 out here and I'm caller 92. And they're like, I record it. I still have these on there. So I won tickets and I'm like, okay,
that would be a great podcast. You should put those on a podcast.
I got to go through my old tapes, but it's like, so here it is, winning two, run back to work, let them know. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. So I come back home and I'm like, I wonder if Kiss FM is giving away tickets. And they were giving Pick a Ticket Weekend, Spin Doctors, Bon Jovi, and Prince. I had this old Conair phone that had the fastest redial in the game. So I was caller 101. They cleared the lines low, and I was caller 102 as well. That's how fast it was. So I got tickets to all 3 shows. But unfortunately, too young to get into the after shows. But literally, I was 7th row each night, so it was eye level with the stage. So you have Tony looking at me, Maite looking at me, Prince. One time I was doing Let's Get Satisfied, and I'm just trying to figure out what song it is at first. And then by the time I realized what it was, Prince maybe did a minute of it. He's already raising his hand for Michael B to switch it to the next song. And, of course, Uptown Magazine loved that, but they didn't have that stuff in there. And that's what led me to reach out to him hey, whoever did the review for the LA shows, you're missing songs. But that's how it started off for me. And then he teased in the last LA show, before he came out and did Party Man, he's like, what if I told you I was changing my name? What would you call me? And we're like, what is he talking about? And then he's like, you just call me this. And he went into Party Man. But then you had that whole thing where he's retiring in April of 1993. And then a couple months later, changed his name to The Symbol. And of course, a lot of the shows that I was doing out here in LA were at the Glam Slam, but they're 18 and over shows. And then there would be 18 or all ages, but I wouldn't know about it till weeks afterwards. So you being able to see him during that era, I'm a little bit jelly, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, when the name change happened, I was in college and professor was trying to get me to change my name. My last name, I don't give that out publicly. And, one of the things that I had heard, there was this goofy story when my grandfather came to America. He was my father was born in Cuba, and when my grandfather came to America, he tried to open up a grocery store, and he faced all kinds of anti-Semitism, and in order to get a lease on a grocery store, he changed his name to Michael Blazer.
Wow.
And because his name was Miguel. And so anyway, so this teacher was going to give me suggestions, and I remembered that story. So for a day, for 24 hours, I was Seth Blazer, and it was like that week that Prince changed his name to a symbol. And I remember going back to the dorms, and everybody was like, what are you going to be, a porn star? Like, what kind of a name is Seth Blazer? And my middle name was Everett. And so I tried it as a lark. I was just trying it, and I tried out for the campus TV station, and I wrote on the paper Seth Everett. And so it was so funny because everything was about his name change. And then he made the big line, "If you're always with me, you never have to call me."
Mm-hmm.
And people would call me by my real name. Like, no one knew my name, and it was so wild. Going through all those years, and then when he changed his name back to Prince, I had already left college. I was all, in the business already, and I had kind of started. And now, I'm 48 now, and so I've been Seth Everett for a good 30 years.
Wow.
I've been Seth Everett longer than I haven't been.
Real name Jeremiah Freed, not Dr. Funkenberry, not a doctor.
It's not your real name. It is on my phone though.
Right. That's how a lot of people have, and he would call me Funkenberry or Doc and all this other stuff. But I'd had other names before because of the Jeremiah thing, and then you're applying for jobs and you're not getting it. And then as soon as I shortened it to Jeremy, which I hated,
I remember that.
I had 4 job offers within that day. So frustrating. So was getting these messages, but Jeremiah Freed, like, I call a friend and he's like, "Hey dude, like there's a band that has your name." I'm like, "What?" And then yeah. And then I'm looking at it, and these people in the interview, they won't say how they came up with the name, whether it was like a play on Jeremiah Weed or just my name. Cause I would post songs that I wrote online, no music, but you just do these things. So they would never say how they got the name. So I actually contacted Prince's people. How do I handle this situation? And this was early 2000s. I get a message from them saying, check the trademark. If they don't have the trademark, which we don't think they do, he'd always say we, but his people would do the same things. I don't know if it's him. It was just him or his camp. Give me information, trademark your name. And I got the trademark. They were signed to Universal. They tried coming after me, saying like, "Oh, I don't want any sales. I'm not trying to do this." So I'm like, "What good is fame?" Because they were talking about, "Oh, you're trying to get famous. You're trying to do this." I'm like, "What good is fame if you don't even own your name?" Stuff like that. But here it was, people change their name or whatever. The thing, even today, I was getting like a message. They're like, "Yeah, we're trying to reach Jeremiah Fred." Like, for decades, I would be like, "It's Freed, like freedom, like it's 2 E's."
Yeah.
So you would have stuff with your name, and if Seth Everett fits Blazer better than Blazer. See, I almost tripped up on it.
Yeah, I remember there was pot involved, and it was a night of drinking, and I was Seth Blazer for a day. It was like a Sunday night. We all hung out, and then the next day I went to the teacher and I was like, "I can't do that. I can't be that." And so we came up with Seth Everett, and I tried out for the campus TV station, and kind of can't look back now.
Right. You have to do these things. So look, we had like a bunch of guests during the show, and then of course, when this format wasn't around, I did a podcast. Then I went back to the video format because it was available, during COVID. But one of the first, Seth knocked himself off right before we're going to do it. So we'll get him back. God, this just brings up so many memories of just doing stuff. And then here it is. Seth, were you grabbing a Mountain Dew over there?
No, I hit the like exit button. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
But I was like, wow, that feels like Spreecast all over again.
Yeah, and here it was. I'm trying to bring on our first guest who doesn't want to be on camera with us tonight. But I fully understand it. But he's a big enough name that it doesn't matter. We're going to do it this way, and we'll just put on the screen who it is. But let me give him a call. This is where it'd be great to have bumper music, but we don't have that. So I'm gonna have a call right now before I put him on speaker. and hopefully
You're
everyone
gonna edit
should
all
be
this in
here because we
post,
did this
right?
with Jelly Bean a couple months back. So what's the phrase that pays? Hey, how you doing, man? I'm about to put you on. Everything good? All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Bobby Z.
Hey, hello guys. How are you?
Hey, hopefully everyone can hear you. Let us know in the comments if you can hear it. Hey, Bobby, how are you doing, man? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, 10 years goes by pretty fast, I guess, huh?
Right? It hasn't been that long.
Not for us talking, but we're honoring and celebrating the anniversary of 10 years ago on Monday, right? Or it was the Spreecast we did at Prince's urging. He told me to join you guys in this new technology, and it was quite fun. I said we take for granted all the time now. Zoom is all day, every day, but back then it was pretty experimental technology. Seth, the Spreecast, you guys had something special going on.
Right.
Can Bobby hear me?
Oh, Seth is asking if you can hear him. I think his mic may be a little bit low, but go ahead, Seth.
Just ask him, what was that call like? You know, it wasn't like he spoke to Prince every day. Prince, you know, he gets this phone call. What was that call like to find out that he was going to be doing this new webcast with us, with these two jokers?
Well, I was talking to him more then because I was doing the heart benefit shows, and he was trying to help me promote them, and this was the second year we did that. So he said, this is something you should do to promote that. And I was like, okay. And it was always, I said, well, why are you doing it? I mean, he was kind of like always guinea pigging kind of situations. He watched us and he listened to what we were doing. He thought it was great. But, you know, he didn't want to jump in the fire, so he sent me to do it, which was a usual job for me to do, was experiment for him. But he was watching it, and he was encouraging it, and he loved it.
Yeah, and he was even wanting us to take it to Sirius FM, and I know that you were trying to help out with that, and same with Martha Quinn. So I appreciated that. Like, I was just getting blown away at the attention we're getting and the support they were getting from him. But he was always on technology early, right?
Oh yeah, you know, always on technology, whether it was drum machines or Spreecast or guitar effects or whatever. He was always ahead of the game, and this was another feather in his cap. He called it. You know, he was the first artist to sell, 100,000 units online, and here he is 10 years earlier, and something we take for granted now all day long.
Yeah, and we were just so appreciative of the support of him basically being our booker. Like, oh, I'm going to get you guests. Do you want to have Bobby Z on this week? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really commend, and I was listening, Seth. Sounds like you've had a great career, and
thank you.
You know, Doc, you're doing good, and you keep it up, and the fans are keeping up, and you know, we're all a little lost without him. You know, like he was my North Star for sure, but life goes on, and just try to live every day and enjoy the music he made, and try not to get frustrated if you can't hear it all this in your lifetime, because you won't. You won't be able to hear it all in your lifetime. So enjoy what's out there, and everybody just keep the faith.
I remember I saw you, Bobby, in New York City after Prince's passing. You were playing with the Revolution, and I saw you and Vicky, and we were talking. And this is it's not a criticism by any stretch. You guys played beautifully. You were amazing on stage, but it was so clear there was something missing, and there was nothing you guys could do to fix it. It was so obvious when you guys were playing that he wasn't there. I'm just curious to know, like, what it's like being on stage playing his music when he's not there.
Well, the whole point of playing his music is to honor him, tribute him, and the fact that that we can create this musical power without him. You know, if you saw Prince and the Revolution, you saw something obviously spectacular in its day. So it's always an empty feeling. Purple Rain is kind of a prayer that you do that honors him in a way. It's that's what it's all about. It's just kind of, you know, I figure when Mozart passed away, there was a bunch of people that played with him, and people said, please play the maestro's music. And that's how I feel about it. You know, we're not going to live forever, that's for sure. So while we're here, we can play authentic arrangements that Prince put in our heads, you know, that we've worked out together. We know that these arrangements are genuine, authentic, what first generation Prince composed stuff. And that means a lot to us, and hopefully it translates to the audience. But there's no replacing him on any level. It's just celebrating him. It's the idea.
For sure. And we all thought that he would live forever, at least outlive all of us, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Just craziness.
Yeah, I thought he'd be in his 90s sitting on some stool, you know, just playing guitar. And never occurred to me in a million years that, that he would disappear.
Yeah, I thought we had time, as you and I discussed privately on Monday when it came to the book or other stuff. I thought that he would be around for a long time. Let me ask you this, because I don't want to take up too much of your time or whatnot, but people we saw on Monday were asking, you know, when is the Revolution going to tour again? Would you be able to share with us possibly if that would happen or when?
Well, I think there's a couple milestones in the future here. Purple Rain turns 40 in 2024. It's kind of hard not to mark that on the calendar. And we're the lawnmower's in the shed, as I say. You know, so we have to pull it out, start it up again, and see how it works. But I think the band is definitely would love to share some of the excitement with people. 40 years later, it's 40 years from August 3rd, 1983, when we recorded that First Avenue show that became the heart and soul of the Purple Rain album. So there's some milestones ahead that are on the calendar, and hopefully we can get it together.
For sure. Seth?
That's wonderful. And it's great to hear that you're healthy and you're doing well. And, you know, just what I was saying to Jay, you know, at the beginning, just the friendships that we made from doing this show was remarkable. And the fact that we all still keep in touch and know each other is really what this was all about. And we didn't know it then, but we know it now.
Right.
Yeah. What it's all about was a health issue that brought out the best in everybody, especially, you know, I mean, you find out who your friends are when you're in that situation. Prince was on the phone with Vicky faster than just about anybody. And that was just something, a friendship we started in 1977. And
crazy.
It seems like quite a while ago now, but and that translated all the way to when I had trouble, you know, 10, 12 years ago. But the Spreecast was one of the appreciative, you know, the way he showed appreciation to me and respect to new technology and what you guys were doing. And it's the legacy that we just try to continue. Is just try to remain artistic and creative and independent and fight for our creative rights, and that's what he wanted us to do.
Right.
Well said.
And like, he so appreciated you. Like, when we'd have conversations, I told you this before, but for other people to know, like, he's like, this is what I like about Bobby, because he would try to reconnect with people from his past. Be like, Bobby went through something, so he's living in the now. He's in the present. He isn't going, hey Prince, do you remember back then so and so? he loved that you were just in the moment with him all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was two parts to that. We were friends, and then of course I had the job as his drummer. As I found out, I was vindicated after me in quite a way. I thought it was hard on just me as a drummer, but it turns out he was hard on everybody. Sheila, Michael, Cora,
Yeah,
and Blackwell. Everybody was, wow, how did you do it? And you did it because the drums were the heart and soul of everything. But after that, the friendship rekindled, and he loved my family. He loved Vicky. He loved the Rifkin family, and there was just a special bond that was unique, I think, in a lot of ways, that carried on for 43 years, which pretty remarkable in Prince world. But it's just something that we talk about him almost daily. He's part of our lives. He was just a huge part of our existence, and we're just grateful that it meant so much to so many other people. In the beginning, it wasn't very clear what was going on. Everybody's got a beginning. You have to look back at 1977, 1978, and how it grew and exploded as he learned to write better and better songs, and the band got better and better and tighter rehearsal, and then with the film, he became a superstar. So it's amazing
how he all planned it out in his head. How you know, and I'm with you. Like, he's our North Star, and like Bobby, I have so much love for you. I have so much love for Vicky and your family. We're running into your sons a couple of times here in LA at different venues. It's always great to see them, and it's always great to see you and Vicky. And of course, we're looking forward to the 40th anniversary of Purple Rain. Just one of the things to see the Revolution live.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm gonna let you guys continue to celebrate, but I appreciate what we did a long time ago, and I appreciate you now. So you guys,
good talking,
congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Much love. Thank you so much, Bobby.
All right, gents. Take care.
Have a good one. Very, very, very cool.
Can I just mention something that Bobby said that I forgot? One of the nicest people that I got to know through the Spreecast that were not guests, Marva King and Liv Warfield and just BK Jackson, and but one of the people that reached out on social media so many times was the late great John Blackwell. What a nice human being he was, and I was torn up. I never got a chance to meet him face to face, in the traditional sense, but talked with him many times, and that was one passing that I was blown away by.
Yeah, it's just
what an amazing drummer. What an absolutely amazing drummer.
Right. It just was so surprising. It happened like around July 4th, like a couple of years later. But 2016, it's like, you had Bowie, you had all this other stuff, and myself, I had someone that I knew or whatnot passed away in January. Then another friend took their life in February. Then another friend was March, where they died of cancer. And I was like talking to a friend that was here from Australia, and like I have this, these things I need to do, but it's like that energy, like I just want to make it through an entire month where no one I know passes away.
Yeah.
And I had no idea it'd be him, even though the whole plane thing, and then he flew me out to be at Paisley the next day. Like, we're just like, everything is going to be cool.
When the plane thing happened, you and I connected. I remember that.
Right. And it's just, I didn't expect that. People were like, he looked a little thin. That's why he's wearing the jacket, all these things to it. And then, that happened. I think I was just taken by surprise. And I had another person pass away in May, then June, then July. It was just absolutely ridiculous. 2016 was a frustrating year for everyone. Personally, for myself, but then you had all these legends passing away, and of course
George Michael,
like George Michael on Christmas, out of all things. Bobby said it perfectly, like he was our North Star. And again, there's things that we discussed, like when I went there in July of 2013 before Montreux, and because you and I kept talking about it, I hold up a Sinatra book, like Prince needs books like this. Like this doesn't even cover his entire career and be 1,000-page book.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the first thing he says to me after rehearsal is, we need to write a book. All these people talking about the song was about them or who it's about. I'm the person that wrote it. I'm the person that recorded. I know everything. And my mentality was, because, you know, I wanted him to be able to be truthful and be like, yeah, I was a little bit of a punk back then or whatnot. I felt he wasn't there yet. I thought we had time. I thought this would be something that we would be doing in his early 60s. And I should have been right there because he allowed me to have a pen and pad to write stuff down. I said, let's get started right now. I thought we had time. And look, he could have changed his mind the next day. But as I told you before, I don't try to have the weight of the world on me, but I feel like I let him down because if I was already helping him out with that, I could be doing stuff because there's a lot of frustration going on right now with the fan community. And I have trust that people are going to get it right, that the timing needs to be given. But it's like, you know, when you're passed over for stuff that was being discussed with you, whether it was with Trevor or with Kirk or with Michael Howe, it hurts. And, you know, not trying to push on it too much, but it's like, if it wasn't for this show, it's again, I was already doing stuff with him with the website, but I kept feeling that you need to adapt. So this is what I was doing because I was trying to push him into doing Twitter and he just didn't want to do it. We created an account with him in 2012. We talked about tweet, all delete of announcing shows through that. And then he finally did join a month and a half later after another conversation we had in July of 2013, the same one.
And then he was tweeting out the links to the Spreecast.
Right. But it was the Third Eye Girl account, but that wasn't exactly him.
Right.
So he's like, no, I don't do it. And then that account folded and then he opened up another one. It was Prince Third Eye Girl. Because Third Eye Girl wasn't supposed to be him. You know, they had a cease and desist letter from Phaedra and all these other things. So they're all playing into it. But
to go on that, I didn't like that they changed his Twitter account. I don't know who did that, but I always
passed.
Yeah, after he just leave the Twitter account exactly the way it should have been, you know?
Right.
That's just my thing. I don't follow the new one, you know, the new. I follow the old one, the legacy,
the one that's PRN Legacy now.
That I follow. You know, it doesn't tweet anything, but I follow it. The new one is corporate. That's not him, and it was him.
I understand where that's coming from, and especially because that's what I was talking about with him doing Twitter. We had these shows, had these other things, because people are like, why did you want him on Twitter? That hurts your game because people are coming to you for information. I'm like, you need to learn to adapt. You need to do these different things. That's what I was trying to do. Now, yeah, you know, I also felt because I feel there needs to be a conduit between the estate and the fans. There may be one already happening, but it's like, you know, whether it's me or not, but you need that person just to have it, because sometimes the fans, as I've known for a while, before Twitter got messy, it was prince.org. And people would talk so much mess about me. And people are like, why do you let them talk mess about you? And I went, it's when they stop talking about you need to worry. And I think Prince like that, the crap talking would happen a lot with me and I would just ignore it.
They always said things on that website. They always said nice things about our show. They never ripped our show.
Right.
They would rip releases. They would rip songs. They never ripped our show.
That's what's crazy. But they'll rip me. They rip me.
Well, they did for things you wrote or things you posted. But what I always noticed was the feedback from the show, even on social media. It was never anything other than thanks for doing it. And again, nobody knew who was behind it. No one ever said to me, "Hey, is Prince, you know, working the scenes behind the scenes back then?" No one ever did that to me. They might have done it to you. No one ever asked me that.
Yeah, and then you'd have this stuff to where I even said it, on the show from Monday from 10 years ago, because when Prince called me a friend in the Tribune article that Chris R wrote, I was kind of like surprised by that. I'm like, I don't think that we're friends, but I like that he called me and I can use more, because a lot of people I felt that were my friends are the ones talking the most mess about me. And that ended up being so true. There'll be people that reach out to me now, like, hey man, what's going on? That I hear about like a week later, like, oh, they're at an event and just trashing me. So it still happens. And it's just like, what was so interesting to me is because, again, my identity as Funkenberry was hidden. You just had it on the screen and then me doing the show. So when I first went to see him after we did our shows in Las Vegas, I believe, like, it was just all these people grabbing me, all these other things. It was just so insane. And I never was trying to be the face of anything. I just really tried to promote him. Like, the story. For over a decade, he didn't know who I was as J7 and Funkenberry. And the same person that he was seeing at the house parties and in person, he didn't realize it was me. And I was trying to keep that separate. Then as soon as he found it out, this is when the access just super exploded. And I'm so grateful for him. And at that time, that's when literally on my own, I'm on Twitter, like, hey, is there something like a video cast? And again, that's when you reached out, and this just took everything to another level. So, albeit I wasn't as comfortable in front of the camera, as we talked about. And, I'd see the comments like, oh, wow, Funkenberry looks high as F, So I wear my sunglasses because I was so self-conscious about it. I've never done weed in my life or any drugs. There's reasons for that. But, to have that thing. And of course, someone else is bringing this up, and we wanted to have Vanessa on tonight, by the way, because that's how she got her cheesecake funk start, was here and bringing Prince stuff out. So our Purple Essence account around Essence Fest, because Vanessa was handling that, we're putting stuff out. Then here's another thing, and I'm really appreciative, because I know we wouldn't talk about a lot on the show because I didn't want to be talked about. But Ellis says this, and this is from YouTube, and that's why I'm putting it on so people can see from both screens. Ellis says, honestly, no one was given the access, news, etc., that you were given, and no one was trusted but you to relay the information to the fans. So sick of these randoms who are experts on Prince. I didn't read the last part. Thank you so much. It's very frustrating because, as I talk about with Seth all the time, and thank you for being the soundboard, that I've been doing this for like 30 years. And it's like, you have people after his passing and they want to be the dude, or they want to be the ones doing the vault or helping out. I'm like, I'm still alive. Those are the things I'm trying to do. But unfortunately, everyone's trying to look out for themselves. And you'll have someone like at least once or twice a week, like, hey, I want to be running the vault. Tell them to let me run it. And I'm just like, are you serious? And it just becomes problematic. But Ella, thank you so much for your comments. And again, Seth, you gave me a platform to make myself even bigger. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I don't, sometimes I feel that people don't tell people enough. So that's why I tell you all the time. Because I know, like, it would be a while that we didn't talk, but you like hooked me up with Dodger tickets when they played the Reds. And I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
And then when we reconnected in person, we had dinner at Wood Ranch, which is one of my favorite spots.
That's right.
So don't like ask me where I want to go, where I want to take someone, because I'm going to say Wood Ranch, and people are like, dude, that Wood Ranch ain't classy. But I could have asked to we could have went anywhere. We could have went to Spot, and I'm like, Seth, let's go to Wood Ranch. You're like, okay. I
didn't know. Yeah, that was when we were in Los Angeles, I remember.
Right.
Yeah. All through the years. Yeah.
And here is Anil with this. I was telling the story today of you reaching out about Prince's Twitter account verified. I don't know if you ever told that story. There was a Prince live account that was opened and it was verified and it wasn't Prince. And then Prince was pissed.
Oh, I'm sure.
He was upset, because they were having trouble getting him verified. And they're like, oh, but yeah, this account verified being me. So Anil was able to help out with stuff like that. So I'm very appreciative. Yeah. So people didn't understand, like, oh, you didn't do this stuff. You didn't do this. Like, look, we made accounts for Prince, but he would back away. I think that's one of the reasons why the Third Eye Girl account originally went away, is they wouldn't verify it. But we got him back after he came back from Montreux and City Winery in New York in August. He was tweeting, and within a few tweets, they verified him. So Anil, thank you so much for that. But yeah, you know, we kept working on that from 2012, and we had another account for him. So, you know, yeah.
Wasn't Anil the guy? I remember, you know, Anil's been a great follow on Twitter. But
for sure.
Wasn't he the guy that helped put that website together where it had the archives of all the old websites? Wasn't that him? I know Sam Jennings was involved in that too, but that website was, those were such great memories. That didn't exist when he was A, alive, and B, when we were doing that show, because that kind of stuff, you know, remembering his connection to the internet would make you understand why he backed us the way he did.
Right. And I'm just, you know, that's what I was talking about, is like, I was doing so much for him and these other things, but Anil on the tech side, like him, like when you have someone like Anil reaching out to you to help, it like means a lot, you know, because Anil is respected in those things. So I appreciate that. And, you know, I've been telling people for years, like, I'm going to need your guys' help with stuff and pushing me, because everyone's trying to push their own agenda. And Anil is, in response to what you just said right now, Seth, and I'm putting this on for people to all see, helped, but Sam and so many other web creators were vital to that. And the websites were so much of his legacy.
Such a part of his legacy. I mean, the NPG Music Club, and even the America Online stuff, and all of that stuff. And I remember when he joined America Online, I had just graduated in '96 and had moved to Denver, Colorado. I was covering the Denver Broncos. And I remember being on dial-up internet, checking out AOL because the rumor was one of those accounts was him. You remember that?
Yes.
God,
The pace of 20.
I was 22, 23 years old, and that was incredible. I couldn't believe that my favorite musician was doing that stuff online.
Right.
I was nuts.
I know Ella is sharing this. I have no comment and stuff, because sometimes people don't understand that Comerica isn't involved, or other things, or like literally it's just been 7 months of other things going on. It takes time, you know, but I want people to see that we're not.
Yeah, but that's a separate show. I mean, that's not what your podcast is about.
Right. That website, the Archive Prince websites, was amazing and part of the legacy. It's a lot of gems in there. Now, what we're going to do, if it's okay with you, Seth, I'm going to send a link to someone to join us that we basically made his first Prince experience happen. So I'm going to send him a link. It could take a minute, but just want to let you know that, and then we'll get back to other things, because like we were, like myself being a conduit, but as well as the show, because at first they were just going to like reach out to him and call him. And I'm all like, no, let's bring him on the show. And people thought that he was aware of it, that, you know, we truly did surprise him. And then, you know, of course, back then it went viral, but in a different way, you know, when we brought him on. So
I mean, Prince was watching the show when he came on as a guest.
Yeah. And then literally, and we'll have him tell that story, that when Prince met him and gave him a hug, and then Shelby like, oh man, we were watching you. Because literally, you know, sometimes they would do it, but sometimes they would be live. Prince would stop rehearsal.
So funny.
And have everyone watch our show at Paisley, like our butts.
That was kind of early on, though. That was one of the first things we did, right?
South by Southwest for him. Yeah. And it's just,
no, I'm talking about in the calendar. Like, was that, we had only been doing the show like 3 or 4 times when we
right. And then he had, look, that Billboard article.
That was in like May or June. That was incredible.
Billboard was in January. It was 3 or 4 weeks after the show, because he literally was going to be doing the Dakota the following week. It was January. Because if you remember, I'm holding up the magazine in our anniversary show from Monday, that he made the interviewer, before he would do the interview, he made the interviewer watch our Spreecast for that week before he would do the interview.
That was crazy.
And then like, I'm getting the Billboard magazine. I'm like, dude, like not only is on the cover, they're literally in the second paragraph talking about our show.
So quick story about that. The guy who was the editor of Billboard that year is now a professor where I work. I work up at Syracuse University. I'm a broadcasting professor in the television, radio, film department. And I met with this guy. His name is Bill Wordy, and he was the editor of Billboard at the time. And the funny thing was when I said to him, hey, in 2013, I worked on this project with Prince. And he says, oh yeah, I remember that project. He goes, you know that we tried to interview him, and he made our reporter watch this show on the web before he would talk to the reporter. And I go, yeah, I did that show. And it was so random.
And it's like, you know, because I announced the Dakota shows. And literally, I guess Julia just literally booked the shows like at 1:01 a.m. out here, 3 o'clock there. And she's like, we're doing the Dakota, post it now. And literally the Dakota people were like, we just got off the phone with them 5 minutes ago. And then the Tribune and other people were contacting me, Fox News out there, meaning they're the local affiliate, was like, hey, can we interview for our show about the Dakota shows? I'm like, yeah, sure. But here's the problem. They thought I lived in Minnesota. They're like, how are you getting this information so soon from LA? Because literally we talked to the Dakota people and they were like, they literally put the phone down and you had the information on your website. So they didn't have a Spreecast, and their Skype wasn't working properly. I think one of the reporters didn't even have Skype on their laptop, so we couldn't even do the interview. They're like, you're in LA? Like, just insane that you ran into that guy. That's pretty awesome. And that he made that happen, you know?
Yeah. That was nuts. And it was nuts. And when I found out that professor used to work at Billboard, immediately I was like, I got to meet this guy. And he ripped the show before he knew who hosted the show. And then I kind of put egg on his face and I went, yeah, hi, I did that show.
Wow.
It was very funny.
And now here's a person that we're going to bring on that was on Prince's radar. And like, you know, we talked about him. There was other people, but this person never saw him in concert. And we made that happen to have his first ever concert. And then he ended up working for Prince for a little bit.
Yeah.
So all this show and all these other things that were going on and him being on it, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you know who we're talking about. The guy that you may know as Jester, the Mr. Jesse Jenkins is joining us right now.
Look at this guy.
Jesse.
Oh, blessings, y'all. Look at you, Seth. I was telling him you look like a while. Funky librarian. Yeah, it has been. What's happening, everybody?
It's good. You look like you're on the East Coast.
I am on the East Coast. We got to hang out soon.
No, we have to.
You guys are blocks from each other right now. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
I can see him from my window.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's nice to be on. Just listening to these stories, it's amazing. 10 years really
10 years ago
swept by so fast. I watched the live stream you all did, the replay with the drummer Bobby Z, and I was like, wow, I looked so young, and everyone looked so like that was the days when streaming wasn't even a big thing, and now everyone's streaming, and we were doing it before it was a thing. So I'm pretty amazed at the changes.
Just amazing the amount of people that you get to meet because of that, you know, because of that platform, and just trying something. And you know, I give the credit to Doc over here. You know, he introduced me to a world. I was just looking for a guest for a talk show. That's all it was in the beginning, and it just transformed. And Jesse, I don't know if you heard the story in the beginning, but that phone call when Jay called me and I was in the grocery store and he's telling him that this benefactor was going to get us guests and send us show notes and music to play on the show. And I'm like, who are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty amazing that, look, shout out to Neil. I am a grown man. But yeah, like the changes happened so fast. I don't think any of us expected the rate in which Prince move, you know, from Third Eye Girl to the band with Model Neon and just all the things that happened in between. Of course, Paisley Park for me was life-changing, something I'm always grateful for. I think it all started with the Spreecast, really. I was telling my friend Nancy how, man, like, I'm really thankful for the Prince community because it came in at a time where I was really lonely and I needed community. And this community was something I was plugged in every day with. And you all were the start of that. I mean, like you mentioned, I got to see Prince through this live program. When it was announced, I flipped out like a girl, like, or any boy or anyone really would flip out if they found out they're seeing their favorite artist. And it was through the Spreecast. So I'm completely grateful for those experiences, really.
I mean, the whole thing is just thinking about it because Julia was like, what's Jesse's contact? And I went, let's do it on the show. And then it's like, I don't hear from her for an hour. So I know she was running it by him first. And he's like, sounds like a good idea. And I'm like, woo. And we were like making sure that you were going to be available at that time. And we were hinting, and you're like, man, he's going to be playing not that far from me. It's a little bit of a drive.
I was mad. That's why it was such a great announcement, because I'm like, how he's coming to South by Southwest and I'm broke and I can't see him. I was not expecting to, for him to take care of that. And when I finally met him in that trailer, I told him, I'm like, this, obviously was one of the greatest shows I've seen in my life. And he really seemed to be impacted by my response and just how I engaged with the music. He's like, oh man, we really loved your response. He said that one thing I remember is that he told me he had the band watch that Spreecast and they were all crying just because of my reaction. And I'm like, really? Like, I mean, I'm just happy to be here, So, I mean, he really was involved in all of these fan communities. Like, he was definitely reading the comments and seeing what people had to say. He was definitely listening and peeping in. So it's pretty amazing that he wasn't just one of those people that just play music. He was actually engaged, even throughout the music club and throughout his whole career. So
yeah, he was engaged. He just didn't believe in testing the cameras before a show.
We'll get into that. But it's like, he would be, if there was people being weird in the comments, like in a post of mine on my site, I'd be like, he's got to ignore it. And then Julia would be like, can you delete it? And I'm like, you're going to give them power. There'll be more, but he was paying attention to everything. That's what I'm saying, is that's why you need the conduit, because the fans don't feel like they're being heard right now. And he was trying to make sure that they were being heard, even though they were frustrated with his musical output, even then when he was here.
Right.
But when it comes to these things of what you were talking about, so you meet him, you see the show, he didn't play guitar at all, and you let him know that.
I did. That was the first thing I said, which is kind of crazy thinking about it. But I mean, he came over, he hugged me, and he's just like, and I'm like, and I'm like, you didn't play guitar. That's the first thing I uttered. I don't know why that was my first words, but my expectations was truly to see him play guitar. So for him not to play guitar, I was a bit bummed, but he's like, I didn't have to. The band was on point.
Right.
True. Donna did her thing, and that was one of the greatest shows I've seen. I mean, it was such a long show, and it was like the energy and the crowd. Everyone was just hype. I had the expectations, but my expectations were easily surrendered when I was just engaged. Blessings, Nancy, and everyone watching. I mean, it's funny because I haven't done a live stream in a while, and it feels, I don't know, it's kind of like
old times, right?
It feels like old times. Like
we just look older. You look more mature, and I just look older.
You look like a funky librarian with all of your books and
That's right.
LPs in the back.
All my stuff.
And Doc still looks fresh.
And less, like 100+ pounds less. Yes. So look, you ended up finally seeing him with guitar, play guitar at
many times. So he definitely made up for it, because my favorite,
you ended up working there and doing the tours and stuff when Prince was here.
Right. Yeah. Not after, right?
Exactly. No, I was the first tour guide technically, in terms of like doing the studio tours in 2015 and 16. I remember when that job was offered to me, it was right after going on a tour from Joshua Welton. And then right after the tour, Kirk was like, oh yeah, and Prince wants you to do the tour. I'll give you the script tonight and you can start tomorrow. I was like, what? He's like, don't think about it too hard. You have the energy, just, improvise and make, just stick to a couple of points. And yeah, the tours were really an amazing experience. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But I would say one of my favorite opportunities is actually working the teleprompter, because of course I'm all about the music, right? So seeing Prince with Mono Neon and Donna and Adrian and Kirk, those were the experiences that I definitely cherish, because seeing Prince in rehearsal is like witnessing an amalgamation of all of your greatest music experiences coming into one. And that was a life-changing experience. I'm obviously grateful for the tours. That was really fun to tell people what things were. I mean, I don't mind doing that, but to be behind the teleprompter and know what song to cue up next, because, you know, Prince, when he plays, he's able to switch the song really fast and transition. That just a lovely experience, and I'm very grateful for it. Working at Paisley, just the atmosphere, the community. Yeah, it's life-changing.
And then you were working after he passed, you came back and worked at Paisley. And then, because I was having discussions with Trevor and Kirk about bringing back the Spreecast, but a sense of putting it on the live stream that they're using, because they called him Trevor Livestream, like Trevor Livestream Gry. And then, you know, of course, those things didn't transpire, because that was when Bremer Trust was running stuff. And then when Comerica came in, it's like, oh, okay, you know, we're taken care of. But I appreciate you, because I know that you were trying to speak up for me and do other stuff when other people were just letting it be. So I appreciate that. And it's like me and you, we got to party together, and I loved it. Like, we're at Paisley at a celebration, everyone's sitting down watching a musicology show. And I'm like, nah, man, I went to a corner with the girl I was at the time. We're dancing, you're joining us. And then we have a group around us, and President Nelson is looking at us like, all right, because you're like, man, this is why Prince trusted you. Like, all these fools are just sitting around watching.
Yeah, everyone was still like, you were dancing. That's what I enjoyed. Prince loved that. Prince wanted to see people dancing at Paisley Park. So when I see folks sitting around and just looking silly, it's like, no, dance. I mean, there were times at Paisley Park when Prince would be performing and he would just say, don't, you know, turn the lights off. Don't look at me. Just dance, you know? And I think that's what it's all about, like dancing. Don't be so involved in the spectacle of what Prince is doing on stage. Obviously, he's, you know, you can't help but look at him because it's like, oh my God, Prince, but be involved within the music so that you're not just, you know, he's not a clown. He's not just someone doing this for a job. This is who he is. And he wanted folks to engage with the music.
Right. 100%. And with Seth, with Jesse, like immediately, because I was afraid, I was trying to be protective of him, knowing that we're getting a larger audience. I was looking at Jesse like, hey, be careful. Some of these people are going to pretend to be your friend and they're going to be upset and jealous at you. And it kind of happened. Like, you know, a person that isn't around no more, you know, that was, we never met. I may have met during the musicology era or whatnot, but, you know, I was trying to be protective of you.
I appreciate it. You did warn me because, you know, Prince said, peace and be wild all the time. And I know one of the reasons he probably said that is because there's some wild motherfuckers out here, you know, like, like it's not wrong with being wild if you're for freedom. But a lot of folks, I think just, you know, Prince he attracts all kinds of people. And a lot of people are involved with Prince when he first started in the middle of his career. So a lot of people really feel close to him and that they know him personally. And so, yeah, I was burned by a lot of people in the Prince community. I think that's a natural thing when you're engaged and people think you just have a dial to Prince and you could just call him. Like we were hanging out. I was not hanging out with Prince, you know, like that. I mean, we worked and it was work, but it was not like I could call Prince and ask him, hey, what you doing tonight? You know, it was nothing like that. But I think a lot of folks, when they figure out you're close to Prince or at least that you are around him, that you're close to him. And it just causes a lot of confusion. But ultimately, I've been blessed with family like yourself and Seth and a lot of other folks in the community that really made me understand that, no, they're good people and lifelong connections I'll have for the rest of my life. So
for sure. And Seth, when you did the City Winery, when you did the live show from there, you're interviewing Adrian, Marcus, other people, like were a lot of fans coming up to you, trying to talk with you during those times?
No, it's nuts. It was funny because, you know, in New York, you know, I've done television and radio in New York. So, you know, places that I'll get recognized or seen would be like ballparks or stadiums, you know, Madison Square Garden, you know, and for me, I remember walking into City Winery to the day before to see Liv and Shelby perform. We weren't even doing the show that day. We were just scouting the situation, like to see, you know, where we were going to set up and everything. And people were like, hey, you're the guy from the Spreecast. Like, it was crazy. I couldn't believe, you see a number. We would get these emails from Spreecast with how many people watched, and always, with any live stream, it's 5% live and 95% are people watching it on replay.
Right, like now.
And so we would wait a couple of days and get the numbers, and it would always be 20,000 people and 30,000 people.
Wow.
We were getting some crazy numbers,
right?
But they weren't real. The real people were the 6 or 7 people that we put on the screen, like that. Those were the people we knew, and then out of nowhere, these people came out of absolutely nowhere. I'll give a shout out. You guys know Andrew Stanger? Like, he was one of the guys I met that week. I remember I met him that week, and it was like he was on the Spreecast. Like, he would be in the chat room and it'd be all those things. But now all of a sudden he was flesh and blood. He was a real person. And it was just it was unbelievable to see, because there was no marketing about that concert. Like, the fact that the band was doing that, there was no like anything. There wasn't even a lot of social media about it. The only people who were there were the diehards, and those diehards watched this Spreecast.
Right.
Absolutely. I remember, like, I had a community of folks. We were on our phones waiting for that announcement, waiting for that link, and we would be here and chopping it up. So yeah, for sure. It
was wild. And then that Sunday night, I'll never forget that Sunday night. I got a text from one of the managers, and we had already been there 3 times. We'd already done 3 of the nights. We did a night before, we did a night after, we did the night that we did that show. And it was a Sunday night. I remember it was like 4:00 in the afternoon. And it was like, you need to come to City Winery tonight. I was like, no, we don't. Like, my commitment to you is over. Like, enough. And he was there. It was the night of the Video Music Awards. And he was unannounced. So the only people who saw him were people who were going to be there anyway. It wasn't like anybody heard he was going to be there and raced to City Winery. That place didn't hold a lot of people, and it was packed to the gills.
It was packed. I remember.
And I remember he played that night till 5 a.m. 5 a.m. we walked out of City Winery. And you guys remember, Jay, you remember Chris Delgado, Del Blago on Twitter. He worked for Spreecast, so he came with me that night, and I remember walking out with him out of that place. Mike Barron was there too, and
shout out to my boy Mike.
It was literally like the sun was coming up. Like the old expressions of like playing till the sun came up, and you've heard all the stories about the after shows. Like, it was literally a live after show. It was insane, and he did not leave that stage until the sun was coming up. It was an incredible night, and I thank them for making me come, because I was not going to.
See what you would have missed out if you decided to sleep.
See,
just listen. When purple people tell you to go somewhere, you go.
Yeah,
and that's just it. You never had to deal with it. And of course, like I said, being protective of Jesse, because I was used to people talking mess about me. That's why the Twitter stuff I just like ignore, and I'm not being as active because you can't get into it. But there's been other people like, I'd say come for you, and I felt be protective of you. Like, one time we were at Perkins and I went, yo, like, da-da-da-da.
Oh, Lord. I remember that.
And there was a girl there. I'd be like, yo, she's the future. Like, Jesse's the present. This is the future. I don't think that she particularly liked me too much, but it is what it is. When it came to stuff, is just being protective of you. And there's been other people that came out afterwards, and they were doing such amazing stuff after April 21st, but they didn't like how the fans were towards them. And I'd be like, look, like, how do you deal with it? Because people talk so much less. And I went, look, as long as the good outweighs the bad, because there's always going to be that, just continue forward with it. And unfortunately, the person just felt there was too much bad stuff going on. And this is what I want. The reason I'm bringing this up is that I feel there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. And Craig Alexander from Prince Day Houston talks about people out-princing each other. It needs to stop, because we need, as someone brought up earlier about loving how Prince was embracing the younger fans such as yourself. We need to do that. Whether Harry Styles is copying his style or whatever, he's acknowledging him and doing this stuff, and it opens it up. and Seth and others can attest to this, like he was wanting the younger people to be involved. Let's stop shutting them out. We need to not only expand to a younger generation, but broader, you know, from 8 to 88. You know, how do you feel about those things? And you're seeing it going on, but you've had to deal with some stuff yourself. We need to be more open to it. How can we accomplish that? First, Jesse, and then Seth, because you have an idea with you having a daughter to be open to different experiences.
Well, I think Prince has enough music for everybody. You know, you can play Prince to anyone. You can play so much of his music, and I think it'll connect with folks. And I think that would be the first thing, is to just play Prince, talk about Prince, and you can easily shoot down a rumor that, oh, this doesn't connect, because you can go to the 90s, you can go later on in the 2000s. He has enough music for everybody. And so I've always just championed listening to Prince from all of the spectrums. I don't really, I mean, obviously the 80s is the most popular, and Warner Brothers has the bulk of that. So we don't even need to do a lot of promotion of that, because they can take care of that. But we have, I mean, I got into Prince from 2010. That was my first intro album, and I was like, this is mind blowing. And I think a lot of folks will have that same experience. So as everyone says, freedom music, right? I mean, we want music, but as Bobby Z said earlier, we have a lot of music that's already been released, that's not been released to, that we can listen to. And I think the moment we share that, you know, we should go back to mixtape days, right? Like I used to have cassettes on my walls. I still have all of those cassettes too. But I mean, I think it's a great way of sharing the music. Like we can build playlists on Tidal or whatever streaming service one has and share it, and just remind people that Prince is in the music. Prince has never left if you really listen to the music.
Do you guys find though that I think the diehards, you know, the people who are just, they love, you know, all the music, you know, from all the different eras. I find myself turned off by streaming services. They don't do anything for me. I'm kind of old school. I have music that I've acquired over the years that I've built up. I mean, I have them backed up as you'll understand, you know, so it's all in the cloud somewhere. But to me, Spotify and Pandora and all those streaming services, like they literally do nothing for me. And I'm an old school, like I put music on my phone the old fashioned way, and it's the music that I want to listen to.
Right.
That, and I'm always listening to podcasts anyway.
So basically what you're saying is, well, we already know the labels are the ones making the money off the streaming services, not the artists. But basically what you're saying is you're not feeling that Justin Bieber $200 million deal that he just got, huh?
Oh, we can talk about that. It's something fishy about these artists. I mean, I feel like I was talking to this with my homie Mike Barron about this. You know, if Prince was around, he would definitely be like, Because think about it, these artists are not making no money. These labels are not paying these artists, but yet they have all of this profit from the streaming services. So something is not adding up. So with Justin Bieber and Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and so many artists doing that, I do wonder and this might be my tinfoil hat theory. I'm not saying this is actually true, but I do feel like there's going to come a time where we won't be able to listen to a lot of this music on the streaming services that we are used to, and that it'll be sort of like segregated to the metaverse, to specific metaverses, and like you can only listen to Justin Bieber on this site. You can't listen to him on anything else. Like if they have
how little you know me. I'm never listening to Justin Bieber on anything
either. But a lot of folks, I mean, and to your point about streaming services, I kind of was that way too, but I understand. And I had this kind of conversation with Prince, because when he flew me out to Paisley in 2014, before Tidal was released or launched, this was the conversation he had. He wanted people to listen to the music as it was recorded, basically in a lossless format. And Tidal, which is what I use, I don't mess with Spotify, Apple Music, or any of that, because Tidal does offer lossless quality music, and it is the best sounding streaming service. And I think most folks cheat themselves by listening to Spotify because, of course, it's compressed. And then beyond that, the artist is not making as much. They make obviously a lot more on Tidal, not enough, but significantly more than they would on Spotify or Apple Music. So it's just interesting to see where the music labels.
I think the artists that sold their catalogs, you know, the legacy artists, you know, like a Bruce Springsteen. You just put yourself in Bruce Springsteen's mind. I just don't think he's recording anything else. And what he's doing is he's setting up, and I don't think there's anybody watching this show that doesn't wish that Prince had planned for the future more, and
Right.
and just this idea. And that's what I look at. That's why I laugh at when young kids like Justin Bieber are doing it. But when a guy like Bruce Springsteen with his catalog, Bruce Springsteen's a guy who, when he would tour, he would sell the soundboard audio of his concerts every single night. Every single night he would do that. Like, what a service to the fans, to do that. He was thinking about things like that. So like when he sold his catalog, you kind of understood where he was coming from. And to me, and I don't mean it derogatory, but it just feels like he punted. He's like, you know what? I had the ball for a while. You take it now and run with it. There's nothing else I can add to it. And I just think that's the time to sell your catalog, not when you're 28, 29 years old.
But he still gets 20%, and it's only the 291 songs that he's done since 2021 with Springsteen. And we talked about, Prince and I, about live recordings, about what we would charge for MP3 or lossless quality, because I did want these shows to come out, and I would love for him to be out now after his passing. But I think what's great, it's important right now, it's exactly what we talked about, is that I feel sometimes with Prince fans, they only listen to Prince. You got to be paying attention to other things. And as much as people may not like streaming services, it's what I talked about before, we have to adapt to it. That's what's going on right now. They're like, look, you have vinyl and other things coming back. It's all going to play out, but you have to adapt. And that's what I'm saying is, like, the streaming numbers that Prince had in 2017, he was getting more than Drake, and all these other things. And I felt between everything with Bremer Trust to Comerica, like, he had these large sets coming out, but the streaming numbers were somewhat going down, or only staying to Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, and Kiss. Now, the licensing is where it's at. We saw it with Kate Bush last year with Stranger Things. Of course, say the Morning Papers or another song, it's not going to get as popular as, say, Kiss, unfortunately. And that's why we want people to know the entire catalog. But from what Seth is saying, it's like we're paying attention to the older artists. And same with Springsteen. It covers everything before, but they don't touch, because he's still touring. Springsteen is still making that money. And of course, the deal he made with Ticketmaster, not really a fan of that. The price increase, depending on
Can I just interject my Kiss line? I think I've told you this off air. Jesse, I might have told you this. If you told me to name 100 Prince songs, my top 100 Prince songs, Kiss would not be on the list.
That's my point.
That doesn't mean it's a bad song.
Well,
it's not a bad song, but he has easily 100 better songs than Kiss.
The Arms of Orion. That's a joke. But I will say, that's one of my favorite songs. But I will say that's my point. I think people need to go beyond the 80s, because Prince only got better. The 80s, he was just starting. So, I mean, yeah, it's funky. But you listen to a song like Somewhere Here on Earth. I mean, he has so many songs in his catalog. There's at least 3 or 4 songs on each album where you're gonna get timeless material. So I feel like the 80s is a cheap shot, and of course Warner Brothers is going to use it because it's a big, it's a big label. It's very easy, and it has this music video. It's a meme. It's
Questlove fought with me on Twitter about that.
Because, he fights with a lot of people about that.
Because he thinks that Prince peaked in like 88.
Yeah,
and that was
that's an insane opinion, and I would tell.
And he would feel that way because he would talk about his favorite songs, and they were all 80s songs, and I was just like, is there anything from the Gold Experience, anything from Emancipation, anything from all those albums?
I mean, Emancipation, exactly. Like Curious Child. Like I listen to songs like even Crystal Ball. You listen to a song like She Gave Her Angels. Like these are tender. Prince has a mood for each song. There's a song for each mood. So to focus on the 80s is just giving a disservice. If you go further down the line, even on the phase 2, 2010, beginning endlessly. I mean, that's Prince, beginning endlessly.
It's frustrating to me, and it hurts my heart, because this is what I mean is like, you got to know more than just 4 years if you're going to be a Prince historian or these other things. Like, he never wanted to be the Purple Rain guy. And I talked about it with Bobby on Monday, like he released Around the World in a Day so quickly after Purple Rain on purpose because he didn't want to be in that. And they've made him be the Purple Rain guy. And you have to, like, look, there's certain eras or an album that I didn't care for, but you have to know it. Because when people go like, what is your era? I go 77 through 2016. What up? Because I know it. Like you tell this stuff, people will have it and they're like, dude, are you like, you looking this up? I'm like, no, like I'm looking it up here. But you have to know the things because I sometimes feel it's like, okay, we're going to do something in the future. Then we're going to go back to the 80s. Okay, we'll do something in the 90s and make it really be huge. And then that gets rid of the 90s so I can concentrate back on the 80s. You got to do everything. Like, look, the 83 show, that needs to be out there. The fans want it. The Piano Microphone 2016 show. But there's so many unreleased videos from the 90s that can be put out. She gave her Angels on the Muppets, and there's some other stuff that could be done. All the things you're bringing up are legit. And again, he's more than 4 years. The casual fans, that's what they know. The hardcore, we're going to be up on the 40th anniversary of Purple Rain real soon. And what do we have to show for it? There's some frustration going on. I get it.
Yeah, but do you need to hear that album again?
I'm sorry?
Like I mean that seriously. Like, okay, it's the 40th anniversary of that album. Is that what you're looking forward to? I want to hear stuff like what Jesse's talking about, like stuff from 1997 and 1999 and those eras, like stuff that we never heard.
Like, look,
if we're gonna hear beautiful ones again, it's like you know that song in your subconscious. You don't even need to press play and you know that song.
Right. Well, you do have, like, say, you have The Beautiful Experience is hitting the 20th anniversary next year, and that hasn't been officially put out on DVD. The live experience, there's different stuff.
That would be amazing.
Like, you know, because I've sent stuff to Primary Wave. You know, I'm not trying to blow up my game here. Doing stuff. The people that talk the most know the least. I talk very little because I know a lot and I want to help. But there's all these anniversaries you're talking about. You're going to have Gold Experience. You do also have to go back from 77. But there's more than Purple Rain. There's more than Parade. Those things are amazing. You know, the Revolution is his most known band. We're not going to forget that. But there are other things that could be just as amazing. You know, that's what it comes down to, is being open your mind, open your heart. All these different things, and just more than the 4 years, and letting people know it's because you try the younger generation. They'll be like, yeah, I tried streaming Prince, because what happens is when they're streaming it, it comes back to what they listened to previously. Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain, the beautiful ones, which Seth loves more than Arms of Orion. He's fronting. I'm playing with you on that. But it's like, they need to get other expansions. They know that licensing is where it's at. We all know that, and how music is consumed differently. But we have to be open to these things and not make him the Purple Rain guy. You're doing him a disservice, and you have to be open to it. And I know these things, and look, there's going to be tapes in there that aren't labeled. You're going to have to go through it, figure out what it is. This 80s stuff is a little bit easier because you had the work orders, you had all these other things. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to put in 12, 14-hour days to go through it. But you need to get ahead of this, because we have a good 2 years to hit hard, whether with licensing or other stuff, and make people care about Prince. I don't want to be an Elvis movie years down the road. I don't want to be in a Freddie Mercury Queen movie. We don't want that to happen. We can still hit now because people do still care. And the thing is, when you're ignoring people that are just willing to help and you're looking for credit, this could be with Comerica and other stuff. It became the point of frustration, because you're going to get the credit. I don't give a damn. You want the Grammy nomination? Take the Grammy nomination. What I want is to help the freaking legacy.
Yeah, I don't. You know what happened? You referenced Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Which was a great production, but there are a lot of factual inaccuracies. And what happens is history just gets rewritten, because there are people who weren't exposed to Freddie Mercury and Queen. I was a massive Queen fan, and you know that Live Aid happened years before he got sick, and now he's the guy with AIDS on a stage, you know, broadcasting to it years. And history just resets. So what happens if in 5, 7, 8, 10 years the stories get rewritten? And to tell you the truth, the people who were there back in the real Prince era, they get older and move on. And history has, it's important to tell the stories for what they really are.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're right. And we shouldn't have to wait for anniversaries. And by the way, because we have so many different anniversaries, The Beautiful Experience, that's 30 years, not 20. Musicology is 20 years. We can't get caught up in anniversaries.
Expectation was 20 years. That came out 2003, right?
Right. So it's like, I do feel that we kind of need to do 77 and go back and not have it be about anniversaries. Yes, Purple Rain's a big one. Yes, Parade's going to be a big one. But let's not wait for those big anniversaries and make people care, because you're going to be double dipping later on with the anniversary. I have faith in the people that are doing stuff. I'm at a point of frustration to where I've been when I was offered a job and being brought up in it. So it's about 5-6 years of frustration. Sorry, Seth, to go off on stuff. I apologize. It's just that you care so much and you're trying to get in. You know, I know that you care as well, but it's like I'm at a point to where me and him would talk about the vault, would do other stuff. There would be people that were there with him, that were there every day getting coffee or doing other stuff. They weren't having the conversations that him and I were having, where we'd be driving around LA with his driver, Gilbert, and talking about the music industry and talking about the vault and what he wanted done. So that's where a point of frustration comes for me. And I just want to help. I don't give a damn if someone else gets the credit. What it comes down to is we're going to be a team, and it's about his legacy. And the thing is that, look, straight up right now, the money is in the merchandise, you know, but we do need more music to be out. But the money truly is in the merchandise and licensing. These are the things that people have to understand. And sorry to go on this tangent, like, because Seth, you brought up something on Monday to me. I don't think we were on air, but you're like, talking about Prince now, we're just reminiscing. We're not promoting or doing future events. And that kind of hurt my heart for you to say, but no, you're realistic on it.
Well, because your show changed. You know, when we were doing the Spreecast, Prince had, it's a bad word, but it doesn't mean a negative connotation, but he had an agenda. He wanted to get a certain message out, and we were the conduits to get that out. You know, and that's what the success of that show was. Now, when you started your podcast, especially after his passing, it was just, you were talking about random stories from the 3121 era, things that you had seen, and it was just so open and free. Mm-hmm. And what I found was people who were connected to him opened up after he passed. And it's not because they felt uncomfortable around him, but both of you guys didn't feel uncomfortable around him, but it's a difference. So now everything's into more of a retrospective. You know, we're coming on this 10th anniversary of the Spreecast, but when Spreecast was happening, he was busy creating new projects.
Yeah,
it's a very different feeling, you know, than what we were doing.
And you're right with that, because, and Jesse, I would say, like, when people would ask, and someone brought up a Netflix thing, we'll bring that up. People would ask, what's your favorite Prince album? What's your favorite Prince concert? You know what I'd love to be able to say? The next one. And now I can't say that. Now it'd be like, it'll only be like, what's your favorite Paisley Park experience? I'd be like, after 2016, the next one. It's taken away from me, because it would be the easiest answer, you know, because people would try, like, what's your favorite song? The next one, you know. But Seth is right. We are reminiscing, but it's also because we're trying to keep his memory alive and make sure that people don't forget how amazing it was. And just because, like, people like the whole Martin Luther King story, did he really help out with that video? Like, yes, just because that wasn't publicized as much, you know. And you would remember it from the Spreecast days. I know Seth would be like, oh my God, every week he's got to say this, because there would be women in the comments, men too, that would be saying, I don't like Prince's afro. And I'd be like, y'all need to understand.
I actually was going through because, you know, when Prince was on Twitter, we all screenshot his tweets because he was tweeting the lead. And I remember someone was like, when are you going to get a new hairstyle? And he's like, an afro is not a hairstyle. And it's true, you know, and I love that he said that, because that's a lot of anti-Blackness. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, Prince, his hair grew naturally the way it did, and he went back to an afro specifically. So for folks to want him to harken back for the perms and stuff, it's just ridiculous. He was not about that life, and I think the afro looked cool on him, and he was pretty clear that throughout his whole career, he was going to go with the flow. You know, if he was going to do what he wanted to do, you couldn't really challenge. Just like he said, like, I don't need suggestions about my hair. If the whole world buys your bullshit, I don't care. I'd rather put on something that another won't dare. That was his motto, and he definitely did that.
And Seth and Jesse, remember that interview he did in '85 where he's talking about stuff and he's all like, you see these cufflinks? Because he's like, that costs money. He knew he had to cross over. He knew he had to do stuff, but he never forgot where he came from. That's where when people like Nelson George came after him, and that's what made him create the Black Album, because this guy's saying, I'm not funky anymore. I can't do it. Like, it bothered him, because how he would pay attention to critics back then is he was paying attention to online comments. There's sometimes I wish he could tune it out, but you had great things like that happen, but he never forgot where he came from. He just had to do these things in order to cross over to make things happen. And look, with the money, you know, him making $3 million a night, the reason it was about that is like, here it is. He does a tour trying to make it $77, include a CD. The Madonna does half the shows, charging $300 and up. He had a tour more. So then when he's doing 31-21, he's charging $321. What people didn't understand is that he felt he's better than Madonna. So he would do it. So you hear this story where he did the Australia piano and microphone, made $30 million, and came back and had Van Jones find a place to give that money away, and basically gave away almost all the money he made in Australia within a month, because he didn't care about the money. He wanted to get paid the most because he felt he was the best. That's what Warner's got wrong with that $100 million deal, where, oh, if you don't sell 5 million copies, you're gonna have to give $5 million of your 10 million in advance back. They didn't realize he didn't care. So when he was wanting to put out something out in the middle of the Symbol era, put out a 5-song EP, they're like, you didn't sell 5 million. He's like, all right, here's 5 million back, put out the album. They actually thought he was going to care about sales with that deal. He just didn't like that Michael got offered 60 million, Janet and Madonna were making 40 million. He's like, I'm better than them all. Give me that $100 million contract. They didn't get it though. He didn't truly care about the money. He just wanted, he had to be the top paying because he felt he was better than them all. And Seth, you can attest to it. Like, here it is. He's Swing City Winery. He didn't do that for $3 million that night, but he gave you the performance of his life that night for you, and you were there for it.
Yeah. What do you say? It's just ink and chlorophyll in the song Money from Lotus Flower. Like, it's just, we're just dancing, you know. It's not really about the money. I mean, obviously, he wanted to be paid fairly, and he was not going to have his music. I mean, these fans right now, they got it so easy. Like, we remember Prince did not have his music online back in the day. Like, if you didn't know nobody, if it wasn't for this Prince community, I would not have nearly as large of a catalog that I have now in the bootlegs, you know, because Prince made it very difficult for people to listen to his music intentionally. And while that did sort of alienate him for getting new fans because people couldn't find him, it really showed how principled he was. He wasn't going to just give his music to YouTube. He wasn't going to give his music to Spotify. He wanted to be paid for that. And I think a lot of folks miss that. They're like, oh, you know, a lot of people don't know what Prince was doing. And it's like, yeah, well, you basically had to be tuned in because he wasn't going to make it easy. It was work. If you didn't know anyone, it was work to discover his music. And I actually liked it that way.
And we talked about with Seth on air, where I got on him for taking videos off of YouTube, especially live clips.
Yeah.
And he's all like,
that Let's Go Crazy video, that baby.
Do you remember,
like, no.
do you remember when he gave us, do you remember when he gave us music and the only way to get it on the show was to put it on YouTube, and then YouTube would flag it and say we were copyright infringement?
They stepped in and they helped out with that. And same with
and
SoundCloud.
we were literally,
Yeah,
I remember calling you, Jay, and I was going, this got taken off by YouTube. It's from him.
Right. But then Julia stepped in, and then my account wasn't, that was it. Then Andy Allo posted something, and then hers got taken down, and I was able to post it up.
How great is she in that show, Upload? How great is Andy Allo in that show with the guy from
I haven't seen it.
Flash?
I've heard it was pretty good though.
It's on Amazon. It is, well, it's hysterical. It's a great, like dramedy.
It's
like
amazing to see what
drama.
Andy's doing. Like Andy doing, she's a bona fide actor now.
And you know, it's so funny because you don't realize she doesn't like. She looks so different from the Prince days. You get so wrapped up in the character, and then all of a sudden you realize, like when you're done, you're like, oh my god, I remember her. Like it's so wild.
Prince had Andy on stage playing guitar.
Yep.
Back in the day. That's insane. Like when I think about that, like
right.
I remember first seeing her on the Le Grand Journal in Paris. And he's like, we got a new one on the scene, Andy Allo. And I'm like, look at this woman, this big afro, which I believe she inspired Prince to get his afro.
That album that she did with
Superconductors. That's
a great album. What a great album.
What a fast, funky as I don't know what. Like that album,
Artificial Age.
Insane.
That came out after we did the show, right? That was all after the show.
Superconductor was 2012. He was asking her to wait till 2013 to do this stuff. So when it comes to it, and then going back to the YouTube thing, like I'd be like, dude, why are you taking off the clips, dude? Like no one sees a clip on YouTube and goes, I'm not going to see Prince in concert. He's like, tell him to come to Paisley Park. I'll have Kirk play whatever show they want to see. I'm like, they want to take it home. And he's like, they can watch it in my home.
All right.
I'm like, all right, we're in the recording studio. And he says that. I'm like, all right. He just was adamant about the YouTube stuff, but we understand where he's coming from. We just want more access. Cause I would say to him, you're the greatest live performer ever. And then look, and when it comes to Andy, when it comes to Superconductor, when you listen to Artificial Age back to back, you guys should.
Yeah.
They rubbed off on each other.
Yeah.
And then he would give so much props to Andy, so much props to Liv Warfield and all these other things. And he was trying to work with Candace Springs, and Candace's people were like, yo, stay away from him,
Right.
But you look at Andy now, and Andy, the thing is, when I'd be in the studio with her, because he made her play these arenas and festivals. She wanted to play Hotel Cafe where there's 50 people in it because she wanted to she loved the music. She didn't care about the large crowds. I'm sure she loved that Prince paycheck though. I loved it too. Those PayPal payments coming through, but her being this thing, he always said that she's going to be this triple threat, that she can be a host of stuff. She's going to have success when it comes to acting, but he really was trying to have her branch out into music. And I miss seeing Annie perform live. I know that Seth is loving Upload, and a lot of other people love that show. And thank you for bringing that up. But, all these things that we would talk about and seeing these people have a success, Seth, I'm sure hopefully it has you reminisce in a good way about things.
Of course. But what I don't need is I'll laugh. I'll go to like a wedding or something, and the house band is playing Kiss, and I'm thinking to myself, my God.
I mean, imagine them playing When the Stars Collide instead, right? Like
right, or I was thinking like Hallucination Rain.
Ooh, that's a deep one. Okay, yeah, Big Fun or something. Yeah, anything from Prince.
Imagine?
Yeah, just imagine. Yeah.
Hey Jesse, you want to answer this one? But no one talks about the Freedom Galaxy. What was he working on his last week? You would know about that if you want to share it.
Well, what I can share about it is that it was going to be some funky stuff. I know that's a very basic answer, but Mono Neon, I believe Prince learned a lot. Shout out to Mono Neon, right? I love to see what he's doing right now, and to know that I was right there when he was like, just sprouting as an artist. I think the Freedom Galaxy are the Black. I believe it's going to be called also Welcome to the Black.
Black is the New Black.
Black is the New Black. Thank you. That was amazing. I mean, the sound was very futuristic. I remember he did a song called Soul Patch. That was the rehearsal name of it. They used to play a bit of it when I used to do the tours at Paisley back in 2017. But I remember them rehearsing it actually, and it was crazy. I mean, just like the bass, Prince on guitar, switching from guitar to be on the keys, Kirk on the drums, Don on the guitar. I mean, it was a fantastic time. I think he really was always going beyond. So it definitely sounded completely different from Third Eye Girl. I love Third Eye Girl, of course. I think that was such a bold move for him to have that band. But I feel like what he did after that with just this, the Freedom Galaxy, it was much more like nastier. could say it like that. The bass was funkier, and it was literally out of this stratosphere. So I mean, I would love for that stuff to be played. I don't know if we're going to get that anytime soon. We got so much to go through.
Right.
But I would it was funky. It was funky.
Yes. And Jesse, is there anything before you let you go, and we're going to wrap up? Anything that you want to share or whatnot? But I appreciate you being on here and then being able to share that story, because not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I mean, again, I'm appreciative for this community. I feel like we all have stories that we can harp on for days, for hours, and it's just appreciative. I'm appreciative of all of the experiences I've had, and I'm looking forward to whenever that documentary from Netflix comes out. I don't know what's going to be the story or if it's coming out this year, but I am definitely hoping that more people connect with Prince. Another thing I'll say is that the youth is where it's at. We got to give the music to the young folks. And also, like you said, licensing. I mean, I don't watch Stranger Things. I know that was a big show, and obviously it did a lot for Metallica and Kate Bush. Hopefully there is something for Prince that can be done that's not like a credit card commercial. Like that, I mean, let's go crazy on the credit card. That's just like, no. Yeah. But something that would basically solidify Prince in a further way through the music, movies, or whatever. I would definitely look forward to that. So,
and Jesse, it was so important to have you on because, we said that the fans drive the show, and this is it. He wanted to make sure the fans knew they were being heard. He appreciated that I paid attention to the comments. We'll put them on screen and do all these different things. But this is what we're hoping, because we want the fans to know that they are being heard. I'm listening to them. I may not respond to everything because it's just amount of frustration. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your experiences and this basically starting it all off.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to whatever you all have next. So blessings.
Thank you.
I'll see you down the street.
There you go.
I'll look out yeah, I got you.
Thanks, man. Now, Seth, before we wrap up, I want to know, like we talked about before, what do you want to see come out? What do you want to see happen in the future? Because you yourself are a fan. What do you want to see? And as well for yourself and for your kid?
Well, from a music standpoint, I think I like the idea of the special editions. I just would like, a wider range from a different 5-year stretch. Not so much the early stuff, but like we were saying, the 90s stuff. And I know there was a lot of talk online about a Diamonds and Pearls special edition. That was kind of neat.
Love Symbol was going to be combined with that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great. Just do a lot of the old, the newer stuff. The 3121 and musicology, and just going backwards. And what I definitely feel exists for me is I have this music, and I don't need to see things re-released. I want new things. I want things that I haven't heard. That's kind of what you want to see. What everybody has the wishes. All I think is that I don't need it to be on a streaming service. I have the music, and I'm a kind of a completist when it comes to that stuff. And recently I found what was the Shake from Graffiti Bridge was a maxi single. I didn't know. I missed that. I missed that. That's what I wanted to hear. Not that it's this classic iconic song. It's just you want to hear something that he released back in the day, not something that a record company is thinking you want to hear.
Right.
That's all.
Those are things that goes on. And then people have been asking.
I spend my days listening to podcasts anyway. That's what I listen to. I have all this music and I never listen to it.
I listen to it all the time. Someone's bringing up the Netflix documentary, like docu-series. Look, don't really exactly know what's going on with that. The last thing I heard was July 2023. Yes, they didn't have like an advanced trailer for last week. That doesn't mean anything. We're having to just wait for like official confirmation because I can't get myself in trouble. Like the family originally wanted me to be part of that because they were trying to find a way to get me money. And I appreciate that from them. But Comerica, just like the guy that did the Prince the Beautiful Ones book, they were telling him, don't have him be involved, don't have him help. And it just, again, you're not getting everything. So I wasn't involved with it. I don't know anything about it. I just want it to good things to be said. And that vault material, regardless of what other people are saying, the August 3rd, 83 show, you're not going to be getting that on a streaming service or whatever before this docuseries comes out. The piano and a microphone Paisley Park shows, you're not getting it. I don't care what other people are saying. Having a one camera shot of a 1999 tour is different than his final show at Paisley, than an August 3rd, 83 show. There's certain stuff that they want attached. They would have to have deals with Sony and with Warner Brothers to release that stuff, agreements. Like, you know, I'm sure that they want to have a big old thing for the 7th year anniversary of Paisley Park. I'm sure Netflix kind of made it hard for them. So don't get on them for stuff. They're trying to do what they can and navigate it. And sometimes these deals, because you're dealing with two different record labels, Sony and Warner Brothers, and then Netflix, it makes it harder. But some of the stuff that you're talking about, Seth, I do hope it comes into fruition, albeit I don't want a combined huge set of 20 vinyl as something that outprices it for a lot of people. But I love your ideas and I love your enthusiasm. But dude,
it's great reconnecting with you, and
yes,
and I love you know, all the people that listen to your show, and just keep doing it, and if you ever have a guest cancel out on you and you need somebody to come back, just, you know my number.
I'm with you. I appreciate you and everything else, because these things wouldn't have happened on different things. And yes, we are going to have some other shows, albeit because of the StreamYard charge of $50. I do feel that I will be doing YouTube watch shows for that stuff. But for sure, would love to have you on again. I'm not going to be waiting 10 years though. And people have to know we were talking for a bit, trying to make this happen. I was trying to do it before the 10th anniversary, but this is just how it worked out. I can't believe it's been 10 years, my man.
I can't believe.
And I can't believe it hasn't been 10 years since I saw you in person, but that's going to be hitting. Hopefully when I come out to Jersey at the end of May, I'll be able to see you and Jesse and Baron.
That'll be great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man.
Even though you say we're 0.8%, no.
We were 0.8% of his illustrious career.
No, it's more than that, but it's at least for myself. But thank you again for your time. And it's just talking with you, it just gets me all like excited. We've probably done this for 4 or 5 hours, but hopefully we hit everything you wanted to hit.
Sure. Just and if anybody wants to connect with me, social media works, but also check out the podcast. That's my passion project, Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice. It's great to see folks, and great to be on with you again, and it brings back a lot of memories.
Right. And Seth, tweet me those things in there, and then I'm going to retweet it, so we'll get more stuff for you. Obviously, you already have a big crowd, and people have to know more about it, though. But I appreciate you so much, my man.
All right. Dude. Talk to you soon.
Everyone. Peace. 10 years. I don't know. I think I look younger than I did then. Maybe that's me playing tricks on me. Super deluxe editions are cool, but mix it up with the albums. Go from Purple Rain to the Gold Experience and Musicology. It's time to celebrate all the eras. I say we go back from 77 and you do other things. Like, look, I have faith in the people doing stuff. I want to be involved. I can't be hitting up all the time, because I'm sure they have other people hitting them up, you know, but I bring different things to the table. And again, it's about the legacy in him. It isn't about, I don't care about Grammy nominations or other stuff. I'm not someone to be intimidated by or whatnot, but my God, these shows, the Spreecast and everything else, just the tweet to Seth, how it all began and came to a different level. And then Prince forcing me to be more comfortable on camera. Seth was part of that. And I look at the other things. I don't know how Seth dealt with me, because I would be so nervous and just making a comment off the cuff because I wasn't comfortable with it. So I thank him for his patience with me. It probably wasn't easy. And I thank you guys so much. Again, the fans, I listen to you guys. That's where it's at, from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, from now. It's all about stuff. And I just want Prince to succeed and beat the Michael Jackson estate every freaking year. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Seth Everett. Thank you to Jesse. And just thank you. Much love. Always appreciate your donations, especially when we're getting charged $50 to upload old videos. But yes, thank you again for subscribing, for listening, and just thank you guys for being you and the support. And thank you and much love to Prince. Thanks again, everyone. Keep it funky. Till next time.